Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Daily Sigh. This is proving to be one of the favorite things that I do, to be honest with you. I look forward to it every single day. And I learn something every single day, which has been awesome and a blessing. And I'm super grateful. Especially grateful to everybody that's been tuning in. Crazy to see the consistency and the growth. That's been super cool too. Uh, so yeah, I appreciate all of you who've been sharing. That's the other thing that's kind of struck me is people are coming in and they're like, "Oh yeah, such and such person told me about the size." So here we are. It's Tuesday, April 21st. This is your entrepreneurial sigh of relief. If you're a business owner trying to keep up with what actually matters, we go live for you. And to be honest with you, for me, because I'm trying to keep up too. And this to me felt like the most productive way to do that. Let's just put a bunch of smart people together at the end of the day and chat about what happened, what we need to know, etc. We go live every single day at 6 p.m. Eastern to the very best of my abilities. I try to share everything that I know in regards to business, AI, markets, platforms, policies, etc. And if you want these calls summarized and sent directly to your inbox, you can go to dailyside.ai. We'll summarize and send them either daily or weekly. You can also come join us live on Zoom. Join my free forever community by going to dailyside.ai. Sign up. The Zoom link is in the calendar if you can't find it. And we'd love to see your smiling face. Now, without further ado, what happened today? Our first story from Axios. Rockefeller Foundation commits $100 million to AI job reskilling. And I think we're going to see a lot of this. By the way, my girlfriend has said this quite a few times, and I think it's such a brilliant point. Um, if you're going, first of all, 50% of the money spent in the world is spent by a government. And I have never had access to government money. I don't know about y'all. I'd like to. And it occurs to me that governments are going to be looking for exactly this. So if you're looking for, the opportunity to start applying for government grants, AI job reskilling and or anything that helps us pave the way from a pre-AI world to a post-AI world, I think is going to be of extraordinary value. Soft opinion. From the Morning Brew, we've got John Ternus named new Apple CEO as Tim Cook steps down. No way. After 15 years and a market value increase of 24x. Yeah, Tim took all the credit for that, didn't he? That's so funny. Tim Cook is moving to executive chairman. His successor, John Ternus, I know nothing about this guy. I wonder if the council does, is a hardware veteran taking over at a moment when Apple is perceived to be playing catch up in the AI hardware race. That's super interesting. I wonder what that means. Tim played that pretty well, to be honest with you. The wizard died, God bless him. And I think a lot of people would have come in and tried to be Steve Jobs too. And Tim didn't. He was like, man, I'm going to ride this wave and just make sure I don't sink the boat. And they did zero innovation, Apple. They made the iPad a little bit bigger and a little bit smaller, and all they did was tweak sizes. But nothing has changed in 15 years, and it's still an extraordinary company. Also from Morning Brew, Amazon agrees to a $25 billion Anthropic investment and a $100 billion AWS commit. The scale of AI infrastructure spending is reaching unprecedented levels. Anthropic's commitment to spend $100 million on AWS technologies over the next decade illustrates the massive capital moat being built around compute. So that means Amazon gives Anthropic $25 billion and Anthropic gives Amazon $100 billion. Okay, they win. Everybody wins. From the rundown, California accuses Amazon of years-long price fixing scheme. No, surely not. No, this is so funny. For anybody in the e-commerce space, we've known this for a long, long time. I have clients who Amazon cloned everything down to the sales page and the bullet points that they used to describe their products. And then they would go in and they'd price it for, 2 pennies below whatever the clients were selling it at. And then they would wait for the client to burn out and then the price would slowly go up. Back to the rundown article. Newly unsealed filings allege Amazon pressured brands to raise prices on rival sites like Walmart and Target to ensure Amazon always appeared cheapest. Wow. If successful, this lawsuit could dismantle standard retail practices regarding vendor agreements. Doubtful, but we shall see. All the lip service given to antitrust to me is just, it's sad and funny all at the same time. From AI News, Siemens automates high skill industrial PLC coding. I don't know what that is. What is PLC? The asteroid is moving from knowledge work into physical production. Automating PLC coding means the barriers to entry for manufacturing and industrial automation are collapsing. Okay. So is everything else. Tell me something I don't know. From Wall Street Journal, Adobe rolls out AI agents. We knew that. From Reddit, solo founder cut SaaS bill by 83% with AI. Okay. From Google News, agentic AI puts SaaS models under pressure. Understatement of the century. And the rest of this does not feel. OpenAI faces executive turnover with three major exits from Business Insider. Three top executives left OpenAI on the same day amid a strategic shift and concern that Sam Altman would also have them murdered. I might have added that last part myself. LLM stats, Moonshot AI releases Kimi K2.6 open source. Don't know what that means. Let's turn it over to the council. The moment everybody's been waiting for. Reading those is helpful because I think it triggers some conversation, but it also buys us time, which is what we need. And for those of you watching live, the council, I know this is the value that we come to and for. I see Dan Fitzpatrick.
I have a question. How are the churros?
I didn't have churros. I actually didn't eat. I bought lemonade. Dude, here's the thing about that fair. I went to the Scottsdale Fair yesterday, by the way. Uh, the pricing's obscene. It's obscene. And I couldn't bring myself to do it. So my kids all got lemonades only because their cousins got lemonades. And I didn't want to be the dad that was like, no, you can't do that. But I'm not paying $12 for a corn dog, dude. I'm not doing it. Took my kids to In-N-Out afterwards. We had a ton of fun at the fair. And then we went to In-N-Out after the fact. And, if I'm going to die, I'm not going to pay $12 for, I don't know, piss me off. Thank you,
Better
though, Dan.
choice. Better.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, I had tons of fun at the fair. That was and I actually think there's something to be said for, it just reminded me of how important the experiential economy is going to be. People are going to pay a lot for that. And people are going to have a lot of time on their hands too.
Yeah,
Steve
good point.
Nelson, Clinton Martin, Grant Bollenbach, Jason Croft, Neil McSpadden, Dylan Fetch, Zachariah. Zachariah, is this your first time? I see Zachariah looks new. Nico looks new. Lee has been here before, but Lee has yet to introduce him or herself. So we'd love to know who y'all are, why you're here, if you want to be social. I'll pause for a moment and we can gaze at each other awkwardly.
Hey, my name is Nico. I'm putting my video on right now. I saw you on the Brotherhood call with Joel Gandara
Oh,
earlier
beautiful, man.
today.
That was this morning.
So, yeah, dude, I got in about 15 minutes late, so I got to rewatch the first 15 minutes that I saw. But as soon as I got in, I saw your list of the 7 things right off the bat, and I was like, oh man, I missed a lot already. So, got to rewatch it. It was really mind opening. I'm starting my own business right now. So developing using AI to develop apps and then develop communities around that. So
That's awesome, dude. I'm glad you're here, Nico. Thanks, man.
I'm really glad. As soon as you said that it was, open and for everybody and all that stuff, I said, you know what, I'm gonna go and check it out today. So I put it in my calendar.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. I hope you keep coming back.
I will. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and doing all this for everybody.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I see Lee, you just put your camera on. How are you, man? Can you introduce yourself? Tell us why you're here.
Yeah. Lee Karaoke. I've been following you for a long time, Kasim. You give amazing value. So I was the guy on the YouTube, just giving, commenting on the YouTube channel, and then finally got the courage to actually join live. So I'm building out. I used to work for ClickFunnels. I was one of the coaches.
No way.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, you were in the evil empire. You escaped.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was in the Two Comma Club. I was one of the coaches there for a while, and then finally building out launch this weekend, which is really about behavior and how to actually remove friction to actually get to the thing that matters for customers.
That's beautiful, man. I'm so glad you're here. And the ClickFunnels crew, jokes aside, I mean, that's a high bar to be able to work on the inside that way. So excited to have you here. I bet you know a lot we need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to share. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming. If you're watching this live, you can always join the Zoom. Just go to dailysigh.ai, join the Free Forever community. I like people here. I like seeing faces. I like hearing voices. I learn a lot. I think everybody else does. And it's not for everybody. That's the other thing that I'm starting to learn. So if you want to continue to play a wallflower, that's cool too. But the day that you do want to, I like what Lee said. He said he worked up the courage. I think the day you want to work up the courage, the thing is expect that you'll bring value because I believe that you will. Um, for the council, I'd love to know what's actionable today. What do people need to do right now today, that we can drop, how do we put somebody in bonus time in the first 10 minutes of this call? Dylan Fetch.
if nobody else will. Uh, People need to use precise language. That is the takeaway. I think there have been several conversations on this call where two people were using the same word and they were referring to different things, and neither one knew that the other one was not referring to the thing that they were referring to. You experienced this with Alan and the word context. And I have gathered since then, um, I'm not sure that any two people in here are referring to the same thing when they say the word context. So I think that we should all possibly agree on what context means if we can. I want to try something.
Dylan's trying to overturn the entirety of human history in 10 minutes.
Yeah, and he'll do it too. Watch him.
Can you see?
Yes, sir. Looking at what looks to be a whiteboard.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. I still have it on white. Okay. Context is a dictionary definition. It is not specific to AI. So there is the general definition of context, which I don't remember off the top of my head. I looked it up earlier today, but it's basically the circumstances around a situation. I gotta get my stupid hair out of my way.
I just Googled it. Context is the environment, background, or settings surrounding an event, statement, or idea that provides necessary information for its proper interpretation. Dictionary context.
Great. Then there is the context window, which is specific to AI. And then within the context window, you put context. Which may be confusing.
Or prompts or instructions.
You're ahead of us. Stay with me. You could jump in when we get to the advanced part of the of the class.
Well, thank you, Dylan.
Yeah. That is also like, you can also have other context. This is Jason's context, and this is Stacy's context. All of these things are context. This is context inside of a database. So basically, all of these things can be files. They can all be markdown files. They can all be text files. It is all text. It's all numbers. It could be images. It's all data. That's a good way to describe it. All of this is data. It's just in different places. This is in a database, and this is how Jason prefers to keep his. This is on GitHub, which is a repo. That's how Stacy prefers to keep hers. They work differently, but they have kind of the same idea, and it is providing context to the LLM. So it can be challenging to discuss because there's context you put in and there's context. And so you just need to make sure you're talking about the right thing. This is an example I had with I drew too big and I have nowhere to draw. A client of mine, his thing has two sources of data, each with an API that goes into his database. It's supposed to look like a barrel database. And then there's an API that supplies his website. If we're having a conversation and he says to me, the API, which API is he referring to? This conversation happened many, many times until I said, we need to make sure we are talking about the same API. It does not matter what you call it, as long as you all agree on it. This could be A, this one can be B, this one can be C. This one could be Minnie, this one could be Mickey, this one could be Donald. It doesn't matter. In computer science, everything is made up and the points don't matter. We just need to agree on terminology. The same thing happened with caching. He would say the cache. There's a browser cache, there's a page cache, there's an opt cache, there's an edge cache.
Tango and Cash.
Exactly. I don't know which one you're talking about. If you say the cache, you could be talking about Sylvester Stallone. I don't know which one was which, but we experience this when we talk about context. Any questions or comments so far? I feel like I'm not converging the way I thought I would onto something. But the general idea is whenever you're having a conversation with someone, you have to make sure you're talking about the same thing when you're saying a word. You have to speak precisely, especially with words that can mean more than one thing. Or a word that's not completely descriptive, like API or cache or context. Also, the context is not magic. It's not like the AI is not omniscient. If you have a conversation on the web and then you have a conversation in Claude code, they're not connected. They don't know that you had that conversation. I'm looking away from my microphone, so forgive me if I'm uh so yeah. Is this landing?
The thing that's landing for me is the fact that we have to define terms. I teach that to my children. That's the beginning of, any conversation that we're going to have. I actually taught them that that's what you do if you want to win an argument. Is if you are in the right and you want to win, just have the person that you're arguing with define terms, and then their argument will dismantle. And arguments aside, I think that what you're saying, Dylan, is we need to define terms.
Yeah, that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
I would like to do a more in-depth conversation about context, but I kind of wanted to see, I kind of wanted to know where people stand on like what is exactly the level of understanding or not that I'm an expert, like this is my perception of things. Uh, and I'm sure other people perceive them the same way. And that's another aspect of the whole everything is made up. Like an array is a sequence of numbers. I could picture them vertically or horizontally. It does not matter. Inside the computer, there are zeros and ones floating around. Same thing with a two-dimensional array. I could picture it this way or this way. Like it how you imagine things is just however uh it works best for you. Stacy, yes.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I totally was coming to this conversation today and choosing to lay back and allow others to share and speak. And I'm annoyed that Clinton put his hand down because I was like, okay, cool. Clinton's going to go before me. So that, okay, thank you, Clinton, because I saw your hand up. No, I'm just saying that to say that I always have something to share, but I want to learn from everybody else too. So sometimes I want to say, okay, let me hear what everyone else has to say. I just want to say this to everyone and to Dylan. I think these are great points that you're making. And the truth is defining terms especially in AI, is interesting because they do keep changing. And the reason they keep changing is because of exactly what you're saying, Dylan, because people have different understandings and use them in different ways. Then what happens is what I understood something meant, if I heard someone else using it in a different way 5 times in the next week, then the way then I show up and use those terms may also change. And then other people are hearing me. So I'm just saying that to say that, well, I totally get your point. I think it's very interesting because I think things will keep changing, like the word agent. I'll use that one as a great example. What people call an agent is very different. And so, and people have different understandings. So I, that was my feedback to your point. I get why you're saying it, and I love how you think. I think you're very analytical, like I am. So I'm with it, and I just want to say that as frustrating as it is, especially for people like us who think a certain way, things are going to keep changing, and I think we need to be fluid and anchored at the same time in what we know and what we understand and how we show up and communicate as best we know, and also be open to keep learning because things are going to keep changing. So that's my take.
Can I'll just comment on that, Stacy? And this is a question. I don't know one way or the other. But you said especially the way that, or especially for people that think the way that we think. Isn't this also an issue with the machines? Like my experience has been, silly example, but Perplexity's agentic tool is called Perplexity Computer. I've been playing with Cloudflare this morning, and their AI tool is called Workforce. And that's a nomenclature issue, but it's also a semantic issue, which makes it now the context of that discussion changes. So it makes me think that we almost need like a quick little glossary for each, anytime we're playing the participatory game where it's like, all right, I've got, I'm bringing these folks to the party, and let me put everybody on the same page as far as what means what. Is that overkill, or does that feel like what we need to start doing?
No, I think in every environment we should do that in relationships and in any environment. We need to do that, especially when we know that there's a lot of variability to the way people see things and understand them. Yes, we need to put that out on the table. In this context, this means this. When we say this, we mean this. So I don't disagree with you. I think it's like everything else, reading the room, understanding what's going on in the environment, in the industry, and address it that way. Sometimes we need to provide that, and sometimes we don't. And as people who are teachers, like some of us, and meaning we consult and we help people, I think we need to also be mindful of that when we're talking to people so that we're clear to to Dylan's point when we started, that they understand what we're talking about when we're talking.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's actually the complexity isn't the problem, right? It's almost the simplicity that gets in our way. Dylan made the point about API versus API or cache versus cache. It's like we know what those mean, and we know what they mean to a degree to where it's like, no, I don't need to define those terms, and yet you do because they are so multifaceted and multivariant. Um, and now I'm overwhelmed at the idea of having to create a glossary with every new AI-driven interaction, but I understand the value prop.
I
Uh,
think agent is an excellent example because I think that's even less clearly
mm,
defined than context and more open to interpretation mentally with how you visualize it. And yeah.
yeah. It's funny, somebody sent me a book. I'll show it to you guys because it's really cool. I have no idea where this came from, by the way. So somebody's watching this and they can tell me why I got this or from whom. It's called Agent Powered Growth. And this is one of the best book launches I've ever seen in my life because they just did like, it's got this great little spiel and beautifully bound. And if you've ever done the book game, you know that this is actually really expensive what they did here. They spared no expense, let's say. They have the high gloss paper and the added book cover, and then there's a scroll that sort of gives me like the sales pitch. Here's the thing that's interesting is, to Dylan's point, I still, after having opened the book, looked at the box, and read the scroll, I don't know what agent powered growth means. Um, because they haven't defined terms. And so like the whole pitch was lost on me. And it's probably because this person is such an expert and they operate at a level of depth that I don't have immediate intellectual access to. And so, and I'm not trying to backhand them either. I think that This is really beautifully done, and I think that Dylan's making a really, really sound point. This almost to me feels like a first principles discussion. Like the first principles of engaging with anything, AI and people, is making sure we're all clear on terms. Clinton has his hand up. Clinton has been cracking himself and all of us up in the chat, by the way. Uh, there's a couple of these that we just can't let go uncelebrated. Clinton goes, "We have such a limited language. We should all learn Finnish." And then Neil goes, "This is the logical conclusion." The two of you, dude, are so funny together. Neil, we lost context in the drawing. Clinton, I don't want to take anything out of context. Like, and then there's Deborah. Yeah, the puns keep, or give them enough context to understand. So Deborah's trying to keep the adult wheels on, and these guys are trying to take it off. Um, the context window of the whiteboard is shrinking. So anyway, I just wanted to say this didn't go unnoticed or unappreciated. I love the levity. Clinton, you've got your hand up. Neil, you're on deck.
Yeah, I want to take us back to a conversation we had weeks ago where we were talking about one agent communicating with another agent, and the conversation wound up sounding like AOL dial-up, basically, like a
Yeah.
bunch of screeching. And really, like when you're moving at the speed of an electron, just like agreeing with the rules of a card game before you start, all you have to do is have one agent communicate a codex to the other
Mm.
and then agree to use that codex. And then it becomes much more efficient, and one can dismantle the other, just like you were telling your kids to do. So
You just
I
won, dude. I like that the analogy is perfect. Agreeing to the rules of the card game before we start. And we don't do that. And we assume that that's kind of done for us because to be honest with you, up until this point, that's more or less how computers have operated, right? Like programs were pre-written and pre-bottled, and so it was really hard for them to go far afield. And now we have to do that. I really like that a lot, Clinton. Thank you for that. I interrupted you, buddy. Keep going.
No, I think what we've been previously doing is having everybody pre-programmed or pre-trained to the same rules. But if we were adaptable enough to train each other in the same conversation, we might actually be more productive,
Mm,
though consistency would become a problem. So I don't know.
yeah.
My 2 cents.
Well, it's worth five. Neil.
Yeah, and it also, just to belabor the pun, it depends on the context that we're talking in, right? So this this call is subtitled "What Entrepreneurs Need to Know Today." That's a particular context that we are operating in,
Mm,
and the things that matter for us are going to be different than the things that matter for people using ChatGPT to get recipes for dinner. So, you know, I think it's important to keep that meta context in mind as far as how important it is to define terms, because there is an emergent quality to all of this where this is a very young space. I mean, you could argue it goes back to like 2011 or so, but realistically, like the last 3 years, right? That anybody's been doing any of this kind of stuff on an entrepreneur economy-wide kind of scale.
yeah. Well, and the age of the industry would have to be dictated by the what would you like reaching critical mass. So it's not
Yeah.
about how long it's been around. It's like how long a certain number of people have been using it. I think that's a really valid point.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm a big fan of the Pareto principle,
Yeah.
not to, you know, uh
No, I mean,
not to boost
yeah.
Cosm too much,
Thank
but
you, Neil.
so it's like what is the operational 20% that gets us 80% of the results that we need?
Mm.
That's always what's going on in my head as far as all these kinds of more philosophical type of questions.
Well, so Dylan said something in chat. He said everyone can have their own personal glossary on council pages. This is really interesting, dude. Yeah, I wonder if you don't end up doing that. Like when you meet somebody, the same way you used to give somebody a business card, now you give them a context card. And it's like, this is what agent means for me. This is what meta context means for me. These are the, whatever it is, this is the little, markdown file that you would need to give your AI tool to talk to my AI tool just to make sure that gap is being bridged.
Well, that's an interesting use case because that would only work with an AI agent and not with a human being.
Well, wouldn't it be it's incumbent upon me to take your context card and tell my AI agent how I want it used? So for
No.
instance, let's say I don't like you. You know what I mean? Like, that's applicable context. So
Sure.
allowing our AI agents to talk before we've inserted our own personal context, I think it's dangerous. What if I don't trust you? Or what if I really trust you and say, hey, anything Neil says, like he's my financial advisor, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, th those are all potentialities, but I'm just saying in actual human to human interactions, I don't think that's ever going to be something that happens.
Yeah, I hope
Like,
you're wrong because I want people's cut. Like, I think that that's going to be a lot of fun to do. Joshua, you have your hand up. Before you're allowed to comment on the topic, though, you have to tell us who you are, why you're here, and thank you for joining, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I'm here to learn and just to get a better understanding of hopefully what's coming, right? And how to prepare for it and how to prepare clients for it. I'm in Vegas and I have a digital marketing agency and like fractional CMO services. So yeah, there's a lot to learn
Nice, man. I
this
appreciate you
transition
coming.
period. So what the whole context discussion, what it reminded me of, like there was a book in the early 90s called The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge. And he talks about mental models basically. And that was in the context I was doing like corporate team building consulting and things like that. And it reminded me of like an exercise I used to do. I'd ask people, okay, you walk into a room and there's a fire, what would you do?
Mm,
And most people would be like, well, like, pull a fire alarm, get out, that sort of thing. I'm like, makes
candle.
sense. I would grab the marshmallows and warm up next to the fire. So like there's this thing that you think that you know what that is, what the context is of that thing, and then based on who we are, our experiences, et cetera, like we find out, oh, like we're not actually even disagreeing, we're not even talking about the same thing because we have a different mental model of what that thing actually is.
Mm,
And then talks about like the ladder of inference, which actually talks about, oh, our culture, our experiences, probably our nervous systems, our trauma, et cetera, will actually color what we actually see about the other person or what that thing is, and actually help define what data we select of what's actually happening. So as it gets like, I know like when I was at Carnival Corp, the English teams responded very differently than the American teams in their perspective of how to problem solve. Like essentially their answer was always no. No, we can't do that. First of all, like their first answer was always no, we can't do that.
that's so funny.
And whereas like, the Princess Cruises crew was like, yeah, we could probably figure out how to do that. So even culturally, like that context can change, or even like if you're speaking on a word, like what does compromise mean to you? Like, or what
Mm.
does like actually can change based on even like, culturally. So
Dude,
so that
such a
mix
beautiful
even makes it more
point. This is
conversation.
this is something I talk about a lot because I teach delegation. And when you're talking to different people from different cultures, and we're almost not allowed to say this now, but it's you have to understand and honor and respect their culture. If you ask an Indian or a Pakistani if they know how to do something, the answer is yes. You could be like, "Hey, do you have the nuclear codes?" And they'd be like, "Yep." And it's important to understand the reasoning behind that and the fact that they're actually severely punished for not knowing things, regardless of how absurd that might be. And you have to navigate around it and ask the question in the right way that gives them the ability to save face and answering honestly and appropriately. Uh, so that's really well received, Josh. Thanks for that input. I appreciate you. Dylan, you're up. Clinton, you're on deck.
Yeah, this is sort of in response to Neil, and it's possible I misunderstood what he was saying, but it doesn't have to be as formal as exchanging a card. It could be as simple as, what do you mean by context? What do you mean by that? And that was what Joshua just kind of finished with. Um, and then also, because I didn't mean it to be a philosophical conversation, like I meant it to be that you could get off of this call and be in a conversation with somebody and say, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that word? But everybody also has their own personal context that you assume that everybody else knows. Like last week, I said collaboration is hard, and Deborah said no, it's not. And what I meant was Collaboration on a software project is hard for people who have never collaborated on a software project before. And I kind of assumed that everybody knew that that was what I meant, but nobody else can know what's going on inside my head. I need to communicate that better. Uh, so it's interesting, like when somebody says something, you kind of also have to think of like, I mean, they should extrapolate for you, but like you kind of have to extrapolate that this person does this, they like this, they know this. This is probably what they mean. But then that's why you ask, what do you mean when you say collaboration is difficult?
Mm.
And I would say, man, I'm an idiot. I should have expanded upon this. But yeah, so we're uncovering a lot of layers of context here.
Well, and it would be helpful too to have something like rolling context. So if I, especially when I think about my use of AI, and I think all projects work this way. You start broad and then you narrow in. And that's how you build anything, write anything, create anything. You start broad and you narrow in. And as you narrow in, context changes. But if the context has changed for me and not for the tool, or vice versa, then I think that that causes some of, not all of it, but some of the drift. And so I'm almost envisioning like something like it's a status report window, and one of the things that your little dashboard would give you, among many other things, like your AI cockpit, would be just kind of an ongoing rolling feed of context. You could like take a temperature as to what we're talking about. Um, Clinton, Neil's on deck.
So, an anecdote for everybody. Um, Scientists have been using AI to uncover the way whales communicate with each other. What they're finding is that the language of whales is not universal.
Hmm.
It's dependent on the family of the whale. So, how do they constantly keep procreating with other whales that speak other languages and all that? And they're just smart enough to adapt to each other as they meet each other. And I think if we learn how to do that, we're a lot better off. But here we are with varying degrees of success doing that. So
Yeah. It reminds me of the Churchill quote, "We're two people separated by a common language." Like sometimes it actually hurts you to be able to communicate with somebody. That's really interesting about the whales, man. I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing that, Clinton. Neil.
Yeah. Just to respond to Dylan for a second, my point is more that this is a human nature problem and not a computing problem, where we all have our unconscious, and even unconscious itself, that term has a context given, the development of psychotherapy. And it's impossible and unrealistic to get everybody to check in all the time and be on common ground at all times. And so I think having your own glossary and everything for your own systems, I think is great. It makes, the development of whatever your systems may or may not be easier. But in terms of actually communicating with other people, there's always going to be a mismatch. And part of the art, I guess, is to figure that out as best as possible in a reasonable time frame. Because like with the whales, apparently, I didn't know that about the whales, Clinton. But language is divergent and fractal, meaning that you get any group of people and you leave them alone, you'll end up with more language than you started with. And you could see this like in within your town, there's probably a group of people at a different age stratification than you that have a different vocabulary. And it's just because that's what was popular at that time when they grew up. Just like everybody likes music from the time they were 16 years old, the language that they choose is going to be based on whatever was the popular slang at that time. And so it's a nice idea, I think, to try to be on the same page as everybody at all times, but it's just not how people work.
Mm.
It can be how AI agents work though. So I think there is something there as far as defining that. Like if you look at any contract, a big part of the contract is defining the terms as to, we're calling the business this, and we're calling the value that, and we're calling the service this other thing. And from there, we operate into the language field as far as what we are promising to do or not do.
But so I love the point that you made about so language is divergent and fractal. That's a fun writer downer. And it makes me think that if AI is going to do something like replicate a human experience, but on an accelerated scale, I mean, you look at the English colonies, right? And the difference between the United States, Canada, Australia, and South Africa, for instance. And same origin.
South Africa wasn't really English much, but go on.
South Africa was.
A little bit, but
Yeah. No, that they started that shit, dude. That was, yeah. We get to blame the English for a lot.
believe that was Dutch.
Yeah. Um, go to
Anyway,
school in
go on.
South Africa. Regardless, you have different accents, different cultures, different, so does AI find itself in this divergent and fractal flywheel? And and if so, how do we protect ourselves from it or exploit it? Like maybe there's an opportunity there to, you know, uh, bottle it and make money.
Well, if you want a fictional version, there was a great book by Neil Stevenson, who spells it the same way I do. Um, which one was it? Was it Snow Crash? I don't know. One of his big fat books is all about like people discover like a root hijacking approach to language, and they can basically program people. Grant's nodding his head. He knows which one I'm talking about. I can't remember which Stevenson book it was.
Mm.
It was Snow Crash.
Okay. So yeah, it's fun things to think about.
South Africa was an English colony in 1806. Dylan's right. It was started as a Dutch colony, and then the English took it, re-annexed it in 1806. Thanks, dude. What do we do? What's the action item on the context piece? Dylan says he has a running document, it sounds like. Uh, is that what we do? What's the take home? What should everybody on this call right now do in order to protect themselves from a context perspective?
I think it's as simple as when you're having a conversation with somebody and you're using a term that could be ambiguous, define that term. It doesn't need to be like every single term you use at all times, you're both on the same page, but particularly when you're talking about things related to computers. I don't want to specifically say AI, but like everyone is kind of becoming a developer against their will to use AI. And we're finding that code is the language for AI to interact with the world. And that does not appear to be changing. So, like, how many people here are using VS Code and never expected to use VS Code? How many people are using VS Code and have not written a line of code in it? It's like Jake Van Cleef's classes have foundational computer science lessons in it. He talks about the memory hierarchy, and that's how he structures his like file system. Um, it, yeah, I'm getting too far off, but yeah, I think it's as simple as what do you mean by that? Like, I don't really, oh, yeah, I don't think it has to be any more complicated or robust than that. Just that simple question would have resolved a lot of confusion we've had thus far.
Well, it might be that though. It might be inserting a frame that makes it, or that not makes it, but increases the acceptability of the pause. It's like, hey, can we do a quick context check? Right? Because right now that does feel a little jarring, and it's maybe not quite as appropriate as if we all decided, like, no, we're opting into this framework to where we can stop and do a quick context check, because to Dylan's point, we've been off kilter from a context perspective often. And so asking to do that normally probably was, I think we should normalize it is maybe what I'm getting at. But I like that a lot. Deborah said something here that's interesting. She said, do we want another option other than protect ourselves or exploit? I don't want to protect myself from anything. I'd love to give you the floor there, Deborah, if you want to. I was going to say scold me, but maybe there's a better word than scold even.
Well, I'm always bringing in a decolonizing lens, right? So these are very colonial words. We're like, we're either protecting and defending against something, or we're exploiting and extracting from it. And I think when we're talking about AI and all this ambiguity that is making us, question things and have these conversations, our language matters and our perspective of it matters. So I'm just inserting some questions in there without any judgment or making anybody wrong or saying that it has to be one way or another. But yeah, I'd like another option other than protecting myself or exploiting.
That's fair. Do you have any?
I mean, everything that I work with is always about bridging. So it's always about
I like that.
seeing it as a thought partner, co-creating, collaborating, and that's the way that I think about and work with AI.
Yeah, bridge, grow, give. Thanks for that, Deborah. That was awesome. Clinton.
So I want to dovetail on your parenting advice,
Uh-oh.
where no, this is a good thing, I promise. Um, where if you can politely control the context and reinforce the context, like a card game, things don't spin out of control. And you can disagree politely and still win or lose politely. But finding an empathetic, polite way to control the context of a conversation and be willing to win or lose in that is really important for just being an adult, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I love what you just said, being willing to win or to lose. Because the thing that could happen when you ask for context is you could find out, like, oh, I'm wrong. And that's okay too. Speaking of parenting advice, I tell my children, I ask them, when do you lose? And they say, I never lose. I either win or I learn. And the learning's probably a lot better. So I like that a lot, Clinton. Thank you for that. Neil.
That's an old NLP saying. Um, yeah, as far as like action items, I was thinking about I'm all in on the second brain modality where I'm capturing as much as possible and putting it to an archive. And an interesting exercise might be to run, if you have an archive of your own, whether it's GitHub or wherever, um, to run uh, a parsing AI filter on it and try to take out or infer back from the data that you've captured what your unique views and terms and contexts are.
Hmm. So you'd ask for it instead of give it, and then have AI generate that for you. I guess the ones that know you best too, right? And then that could kind of grow and cross-pollinate.
Right. Well, if you're doing the second brain thing where you're archiving just everything that you're creating on a computer system, then you just that's your database and you can run those operations on that buildup of knowledge.
What Neil just said, I think, is the most actionable thing for anybody. If you haven't yet established a second brain, which the context there is Tiago Forte wrote a book called The Second Brain that existed pre-AI, and the thesis behind it is pre-AI, and I actually don't like Tiago's approach. So I wouldn't recommend Tiago's approach, but I like the idea, which is there's just a place where everything lives. And the the hope would be that you can capture everything. And my very I don't know what to call this. It's a Luddite opinion is you don't even need to do anything with it yet. You just need to capture. Like when in doubt, capture and have it somewhere because on a long enough timeline, AI is going to be able to do what we want to do. And so every phone call that you're on, every meeting that you're in, every Fathom recording, every email, every file that you save, everything gets put somewhere where AI can eat it. Um, Assuming that you want AI to eat it, obviously. There might be some things that are private. I don't know. And it's not hard. To be honest with you, the people that made it the easiest is Google. If you're using Gmail and Google Calendar and Google Drive, well, there's most of it. Especially if you've got your recordings going into Drive and you're wearing one of those little pendants now that I keep charging and then forgetting to wear, and then it runs out of battery and then I have to charge the damn thing again. Um,
Same
yeah,
problem with the pendant.
I know that's the problem, isn't it? It really, our phone is already listening, and we know that because we get ads on things that we say. And I wish it would just give me everything that it hears instead of pretending like it's not listening. Um, yeah, I think that's extraordinarily actionable. Dude, there's a whole agency there. If somebody's looking for a business opportunity, go build the Second Brain agency. Like that's a right now today. There's a seven-figure agency without question. Um, for whatever that's worth. I'd pay for that at the moment. As a matter of fact, we're actually kind of building it inside of Pareto, but it needs to be solution agnostic, not tied to an evil capitalist. Um, I'm looking for secondbrainagency.com before Clinton gets it. uh, Dylan, what is this screenshot that you just dropped in here?
It's a directory structure from my current project. Let me look at it. So
And what is
uh,
current state? I saw you mention that in chat. That's the thing that you're saying you just keep updated regularly?
yeah, it's actually stale right now. So like I'm not being good about it, but the like so this is a coding project, not a project, but you can interpret it for your use. If you use Claude Cowork or VS Code or whatever, I have a documents directory which contains subdirectories, postmortems, progress, reference, research, runbooks, and superpowers. Superpowers is the like workspace for the superpowers plugin.
Mhm.
It puts plans and specs in there that it creates. Runbooks are typically handoff documents, which I will go into more detail about because I think that's what Elliot was saying that I should tell people about.
Mm.
But again, I guess I thought other people were already doing that. Research is exactly what it sounds like, like get me all of the specs for the GPUs off of Brev and determine like what is the cost per CUDA core, what is the cost per Tensor core, what in 32, 16, and 8-bit, all of that. Reference is like things that don't really change that it will need to look at. So like an API reference or the result of that research, like it finds all of the specs of these GPUs and then puts them into a nicer format and takes out all the noise, like just a list of the three best ones instead of all of the most of them also have an archive subdirectory where you move old folders into, or I mean old files, and then that way it knows these are old files, but you don't lose them. You still have that history. They're all just markdown files, so it doesn't take up much storage. Um, but it's like MVP strategy. Like
Mhm.
I'm making an MVP. This is what the MVP will eventually be. Like a longer term strategy. This is what eventually this will be. Like this is what the business is all about. Um, just like random things that I want to incorporate. Like I think I don't even remember what this word is. Ligatures. I think ligatures are going to be important at some point, but I don't know how yet. So I just have a note that says ligatures are going to be important. Um, a ligature is like two letters that are that look different when they're together than when they're apart. Uh, like if a T and an I are next to each other, and the I is underneath the cross of the T. Um, Data formats. What is the format of the data that the model accepts? Uh, Progress is like, hey, write down everything we've done since the last time a progress file was created. Um, Postmortems are analysis of a training run or whatever process after it's completed. And I also have a skill for postmortems so that the postmortems are always built in the same format with the same. And again, I know that all of these things don't apply specifically to you. You have to take what I'm saying and translate it to whatever you're doing, creating content, social media posts. Um, it's just like documents that can that there's information about the business, cost and proposed adding information about yourself, but they're all organized. And you can say, look at this file, and this file for this task. So like I'm writing a blog post. This is my brand voice for blog post. This is my like business overall business message, and this is a research document on this particular topic. Take these three things and make a blog post, and then you don't have to paste them all in. Um, you don't have to like use the same chat thread forever and ever so that you don't lose your stuff. It's all nicely organized, and this is what the Jake Van Cleef teaches. That if you haven't looked, you've probably heard a handful of people in this group say he just teaches use the file system. The file system has not changed since the 70s. you can, so like this directory, I'm using Claude code in it, and then I can switch to using Codex in it, and I don't have to change anything. And then I can switch to using open code with open router, and I don't have to change anything. Like it's all just files. And that's how you organize and arrange. And the handoff documents are like the context window is quadratic in algorithmic complexity. It's squared. So n squared. Imagine
Those are words.
yeah,
We've lost all context now.
one of these ones,
The,
not
the
straight.
context window is quadratic in
As it, if you double the size of the context window, it takes 4 times as much time and 4 times as much memory.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So that's the way to maybe visualize the exponential increase each time.
It's n squared. And that's why we don't have like 10 million token context windows, because as it grows, and that's also why a 1 million context window is bullshit, because we like, so use less than half your context window. If you see the context window is filling up, I tell the agent, which is just, if you use the chat, you just imagine it as one chat thread. If your chat thread is context window is getting full, I say write a handoff document that will allow another agent to pick up where you left off.
Dude,
And then
that's a writer downer right there. I know it sounds extraordinarily simple. What Dylan just said was a big unlock for me because you taught me that I don't know how many weeks ago. And since I started doing that, the speed at which I'm able to use my tools has increased because I don't get slowed down. So forgive me for interrupting, but I just wanted to double click on what Dylan just said. I've used that in action and that's huge. Keep going.
that's what Elliot said. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what Elliot was referring to, and I didn't click for me because it is like simple conceptually, but I mean, not everyone will think about it that way. But then I just open up a new thread, say, use this handoff doc to continue and complete the task. And that's it. And this handoff doc hopefully has everything that it needs. If you're a smart person, you can read it, but I'm not a nerd. So uh that's and so but I've found recently, you have to delete them because they'll start to reference these handoff docs as if they are like official documents, but they they apply to a specific context. Like it's only, this is a one-time use thing to exchange a task between two. And what I really want to do, and I haven't figured out yet, is I want that to just happen on its own. Like at this point, write a handoff doc, but I don't know how to open a new one. So my solution that I haven't tried yet is to open a new one and say every 30 minutes, check this folder for this file. And when you find it, pick it up and continue. Because that's another thing, is that the superpowers plugin is amazing, but whenever it makes the plan, by the time it's done, the context window is full, or the spec, I mean, and then it turns the spec into a plan. By the time it does the plan, the context window is full. So I always take the plan and have another agent do it. And I just take the plan and say, do a sub-agent driven execution of this plan, because that's like the specific phrase that triggers the skill for it from the superpowers, because the sub-agent driven execution is part of the superpowers thing. And that, like, each sub-agent has its own context, and that's why you use the sub-agents, so that you keep the main context clean. It's just the orchestrator. And I know now I'm getting into the weeds, and I will like hopefully talk about that another time. But like the main idea is you can hand off tasks between two, I'll call them chat threads instead of agents. You can hand off a task between two chat threads if your context is filling in one. Because they also experience context anxiety. And if they think their context window is filling up, they'll wrap up a task sooner than you want them to. So they say they've overcome that, and that was like an Opus 4.5 thing. Stacy, please go. I've been monologuing.
Stacy, you ran her off, dude. She got
So,
scared.
no, I'm here. I'm here. So, very interesting. Dylan always makes me think about things. And I'm just going to go backwards. There's two things. The first thing is, Dylan, so what I do currently is I already have it set up. I don't have to say at any point, uh, write this doc and do this with it and do that because it's already set up. So all I say is close, and it knows to do that. I then it creates a handoff manifest and it rewrites it every time. And that's okay because it also does a flight log or a log that takes and extracts whatever I want to keep and puts that somewhere else. In addition, um, when I start a new thread or chat within whatever I'm working on, and I say that on purpose because I want to go back to something you said before this. Um, I just say flight check. I think I shared with you guys, I use an aviation metaphor for everything. So I say flight check as a pilot would
Mm.
when we're about to move forward on a mission. And it then goes and reads from the repo, because we talked about that, right? That's what I use, but it doesn't have to be the repo. Could be whatever it is you're using where your documents and your information are. It reads that and it then knows where we left off, what the new missions are, what needs to be done. The other thing I wanted to say, Dylan, because you said words matter, you kept saying, I use, you said, I use Claude Code in this, or I forget, VS Code in this. I think what you meant, and if I'm wrong, please tell me, is that you use your data in Claude Code and in VS. And I would love in the chat, if I'm wrong, you tell me, but I just wanted to say that because you said words matter. So I just wanted to share that. So there was something else and I can't remember what it is now, but I'll leave it at that.
If you think of it, come back.
Yeah,
Oh,
I believe you said earlier, like if you always tell yourself that like you're not going to talk this time. I need to stop talking because that's what happens when I stop talking. Is stuff like that gets shared. That was awesome. Yeah, I mean, that is another way to say it. You know, I'm using my data in Claude code, but I prefer to think of the data as stationary and the model as mobile. So like in that the I would be using the Claude on or in my thing, but if you prefer to think of it as I'm using my data in Claude Code or I'm using my data in Codex, and then all of that is in VS Code because VS Code holds Claude Code and Codex for me. There's also desktop applications for both of those. Um, how do you implement those commands like close, flight check, flight log, all of those things?
So in my initial document, which is similar to, I think you had asked earlier about Claude.md or whatever your initializing document is that tells whichever tool, from my perspective, you're in, what to do and how to work. So even if you do Claude co-work, well, that would still use the Claude MD, but whatever you're using, it already has all the nomenclature and all the information, all the instructions and rules about how to function. And there's a lot of rules that are written. And I'll be honest, I'm not a coder. So I came up with these concepts. I didn't come up with the process of how to write it. I utilized through my conversations, if you will, with my AI or my agents. We talk about what I want and it helps me to understand what's needed. We talk about it, it tells me, and then it goes ahead and creates it. But it was my concept and then it executed it for me. So
Stacy, I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way. You have the most soothing way of explaining things. I really enjoy listening to you. I think that there's something about the timbre of your voice and the pace at which you speak that it feels like I'm learning now. It's like, hey, we're gonna slow down and we're actually gonna learn this shit. So thank you for that.
thank you for what you shared. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Um, This was a talk, y'all. Dylan, I appreciate you catalyzing this topic. I thought it was really, really important. I appreciate everybody who contributed. I've been thinking a lot about the format and the structure of the calls. We talked about it a little bit in the WhatsApp group. Structure scares me because structure kills creativity. No structure scares me because no structure atrophies. And so what I was thinking about proposing potentially is ahead of time, we chat in WhatsApp. And it's, you might call it the context of the calls. Stop it, Neil. I think it would be really helpful if we had the opportunity to just fly off the rails. Today's a really good example. I thought it was just, I thought it was really productive, and it wouldn't have happened had we been too structured. But maybe have some prep time. And so if y'all are open to it, the thing that I was thinking of is we play the show and tell game that we were talking about inside of WhatsApp. And if you're here incidentally and you're not in our WhatsApp group, I'm going to drop a link. You can join our private WhatsApp group. It's available to anybody who joins the Zoom calls. And if you're watching this live and you want to join the Zoom calls, you can always go to dailysigh.ai. Inside the private WhatsApp group, I think we do show and tell. This is what I'm working on today. And then the show and tell conversation maybe becomes a little iterative, not much, but it could even just be thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm interested, I'm not. And then when we come to the calls, we're a little more equipped to have a productive conversation. That's some structure, but not so much that it kills the call. How does that feel as maybe a trial run just tomorrow? I got one thumbs up. Thank you, Deborah.
Is it
Steve,
tomorrow
We have a
your
guest tomorrow.
yeah.
thank you. That was a test. I wanted to see how much y'all pay attention. My business mentor's coming tomorrow. Definitely won't work tomorrow. How does that feel as a trial run for Toys Day? What is today? Yeah, Thursday. Good. Still thumbs up. Awesome. Tomorrow, thank you for reminding me, Neil. I completely forgot. My business mentor is coming to the call. Gregory J. Smith. He's one of the greatest humans I've ever known. He was like a dad to me. I've known him since I was 19 years old. He's built 3 family fortunes for other people, not for himself. Although he's very successful, but he's built $3 billion family offices, multi-billion-dollar. He ran the bank that was the basis for the movie The Big Short. It's the bank that brought down Lehman Brothers. They brought Greg in to save it. We'll talk about it on the call. And then the family that owned the bank did not listen to him. I think he's one of the only bankers ever in the history of banking to beat the FDIC in open court. Like he's a really extraordinary human being. And he'll be here tomorrow to talk about M&A evaluations, what he sees on the horizon. Really generous human. I'm really excited to invite him, welcome him. If there's other people that y'all want to invite to the show, please let me know. I actually just reached out to Van Cleef because I figured why not? Like we talk about him so often. I just messaged him like, hey buddy, your name comes up a lot. Do you want to join the show? I don't know how busy or important he is. So maybe he says yes, maybe he says no. But if you have somebody that you think would be a good contributor, please tell me. I ran into a gentleman today, I actually spoke for his mastermind, Joel, and I invited him to come speak to us. Amazing story. Came over as an immigrant from Cuba, built 14 businesses, sold them all now, financially independent, but really, really wicked smart cat. I liked him a lot. Would love to host other guests, would love to get other perspectives. If somebody on this call has something to share, we'd love to hear it. Feel free to hit me up inside of Messenger. And Jason, you have your hand up.
Hi there. I can't remember his name, Mo, the gentleman that was at
Mo Godot.
Google.
Yeah.
Yes, like his stuff was like, if you can get him here,
Bro, to be honest, if I could get Mo Godot, I would not share him. I would 100%. And yeah, he feels a little outside my access. I actually know somebody who knows Mo. A friend of mine is in business with Peter Diamandis, and Peter and Mo are super close. So I have a line of sight to him, and he's one of my favorite thought leaders in the whole wide world. I wish I didn't respond the way I just did, Jason. You caught me a little vulnerable because I like the guy a lot and I've been stalking him and I want to talk to him too.
keeping it real. I love when keeping it real. You know, that's what we're here for. Right? We're all
Yeah.
human beings.
So I'd love to get Mo for sure. And for y'all that don't know Mo, he was the Google X guy, really brilliant cat. He's the most honest about AI, I think, from all the AI thought leaders. He's the one that really tells it how it is, but he's still an optimist, which is cool too. So thank you for that. Keep those recommendations coming. I do know somebody that knows Mo. I'm not in a position to make an ask just yet or ever. But if I ever get compromising photos, you'll know. Deborah's like, no, that's colonial thinking. Here I am again. Thank you for catching me. All right, y'all. I love you. I mean it. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching this live, all of these calls are summarized and sent to you daily and or weekly. Just go to dailysigh.ai. You can always join the private Zoom room. It's absolutely free. Just go to dailysigh.ai, click join live, join my free forever community. The Zoom link is inside of the calendar. Everybody on the council is featured inside of a database built by our very own Grant Fullenbach called councilpages.co. councilpages.co. So if somebody spoke today and you thought, man, I'd like to get a hold of that person, pay them for their time, hire them for something, that's the place to go. We build on that regularly. Grant has been updating it with some really amazing features. And so expect that to expand as we go. I go live every single day at 6 p.m. Eastern. I hope this has been extraordinarily valuable. I appreciate everybody who keeps